Today, our brand new guest chair holds the man who the Wall Street Journal and Audiophile magazine called the Golden Voice and one of the fastest rising stars in the audiobook galaxy. He has narrated over 600 titles to date, and he is also an accomplished stage actor, novelist, screenwriter, and teacher. We are so thrilled to welcome the Publishers Weekly Narrator of the Year twice, the very well-read Scott Brick.
Yeah! How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Great to have you on the show.
I've been looking forward to this.
Good.
Chat.
I'm glad, man. Now, I know because you got muscles and stuff like that. You work out at home every day, and you're pumping iron in your garage and all that stuff. But before a session, an audiobook session, are there any vocal exercises that you go through?
No, I don't do vocal warm-ups, and I know I should. You know, I have friends of mine who swear by them.
No, we're just asking. It's not a judgment. He's
No,
like, I'm sorry.
feel judged.
We're not scolding you.
I know. I think about my old teachers who are just going to want to smack me across the head. Say, don't tell new people to the industry not to warm up their voice.
Butter for you?
No, I don't. But what I do a lot of maintenance to my throat in terms of, you know, when I'm in the studio, the things I'm drinking, the fluids I'm just flushing constantly through. Right. You know, for
hot fluids, cold fluids.
Both. I do. Well, there are 4 things I do.
This is the exercise part that he doesn't do.
Yes.
Right. No. These aren't exercises.
So it's more rituals.
These aren't exercises.
Rituals.
These are my rituals.
Yeah.
These are what Kata Mazer is.
Oh, good. He brought
great.
props.
I brought props.
Props.
Kata Mazer is a great audiobook narrator, and she calls what she does her potions. If you go into the studio, this is what you'll see on my desk. I have 4 potions. Okay. One prop will serve 2 functions. First is water, because you know the larynx is a muscle, and muscles will fail without water. So when I'm turning the page, every time I turn the page, the first thing I do, water.
Every time.
Every time I turn the page.
That's an exercise right there, by the way.
Well, I'll take some water. Okay.
After the water, then comes the hot liquid, which I keep as scalding as possible, and I drink throat coat tea by Traditional Medicinals. I'll give them a plug.
Yes.
I'm not getting paid.
We
but
love them. Maybe
anybody,
they'll want to sponsor our
anybody
show.
in that, absolutely. I was doing Cyrano years ago, and 3.5 hours of yelling, and I realized throat coat is really great at getting rid of sore throats. It would probably be good for not getting them in the first place, so I just drink it all day long.
So whether you need it or not.
Whether I need it or not, I've got, so I go water, then throat coat.
Okay, there goes the throat coat. See, I'm imagining I could smell throat coat. See, you're that good.
Well, I do this for a living, you know.
What can I say?
The next thing I do is to get rid of the popping sounds. Not Visine, no.
In the mouth.
No.
That's under the tongue.
Oh, jeez. Oh, boy.
I can't even imagine what that would taste like. Yikes.
Not good.
No, this is to get rid of mouth noises. I mean, we all know.
Yeah.
That happens. So after you talk out loud for 6 or 8 minutes, however long it takes to do 2 pages, this is what I do. Okay. Really cuts through all of the, stickum and stuff that gets on the end of your tongue.
What is that?
Salt
a mini scope?
This is just like it's like Banaka, but I just get like the generic ones at Walgreens.
Okay.
Nice.
You know,
At Walgreens or
I literally
Rite
buy
Aid
them
or
by the
CVS.
box. There's like 50 or 60 in a box. I just buy them all, and I walk up to the counter and they're like, "How many's in there?" I'm like, "I don't know."
I don't care.
And they're like,
I
are
just
you in
need
some
them.
sort of
And
rehab
they're like
program?
offended that they have to count them.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not asking you to scan them, count them. 59 and then scan it once, whatever.
Well, we know what to get you for Christmas.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll get you a
My friends
case.
actually do that.
Nice.
The last thing is I use just lip balm. I use Blistex, and it doesn't really exactly look masculine because I'm not putting it on.
Dabber.
I'm a
It's
dabber.
masculine when
but
you
I'll
dab
tell-
Oh, see that? Okay, so
no,
If you had like a little mirror while you're doing it, and then we'd have problems.
The head of Random House, a guy who used to run Random House years ago, he gives me such grief every time he sees me do it in public. He goes, "Wow, you're looking really manly there." You know? But the thing is, you don't put it on like it's lipstick, because I've noticed
Too
if you
thick.
do, it's too thick and you
Right,
pop too
right,
much.
defeats the
And so I
purpose,
found
yeah.
if you dab, it's just enough.
a little dab will do you.
Will actually do you.
Wow.
That's
Just
great.
These are some pretty good
So these are 4
tricks there.
things. So
and
those
I
are
love
my
that
props.
you reenacted it. I love that.
I hope you guys took some notes on that.
I
Because
love
that's
that.
some good stuff.
So take us through a little bit through the process, because even
Okay.
people in the voiceover industry this is necessarily not an area that they are even familiar with.
Sure.
So you're in the booth. Now, have you read the book ahead of time, or do you like to be fresh?
People ask me that question a lot. Do I read the book ahead of time? Yes and no. I always tell students, I'll admit there are times I don't read the book. I think you should read the book. I always tell my students, do as I say, not as I do.
Right.
Because you really need to know as much as possible about the story. If it's a whodunit, you have to know whodunit.
Yeah.
You do, because authors, they manipulate us in a really great and hopefully subtle way. They're gonna give us the red herrings. They're gonna give us these portentous lines that it's like the movie The Sixth Sense. When you get to the end of that, every time you'd see, what was it? The symbology they used was the red door handle. If I was reading that book, a book of The Sixth Sense, if I talked about, the portentous red door handle, if I just went like overboard, people would be like, well, okay, of course there's something significant there. I need to read it as just like, he turned the red door handle. And yet at the end of the book, there will come that moment where everybody reassesses and they go, oh, right, it's the door handle, right. I need to know what the red herrings are.
Right.
So I know to throw them away, toss them off lightly,
Right.
So I always say, yes, read the book. The times that I don't, I'm still working with a producer who has. And she'll say, no, that character isn't actually from Glasgow. It's from, Alabama, for my crazy choices that I make. So typically, yes, you do read the book. Research happens. It depends on whether you're producing the book yourself or you're working with a director, producer. If that's the case, the director usually handles the research. But if you're doing it yourself, you either do it yourself or you hire a researcher. And then you basically you go in. You're looking for clues. You're looking for anything that tells you what a character's like. Sometimes they'll give you easier things like an accent. They'll tell you a character's from Alabama or from Glasgow or from Canada or from New York. But other times they're not going to tell you much. They're going to tell you more emotional things. They'll tell you that this really kind of strident, horrible character, you think that she's just kind of a harpy, because she's always just mad and angry all the time. Well, they'll tell you at the end of the book it's because of a tragedy that happened. And so that gives you an indication.
Or she forgot to take her meds or something like that.
There's that as
I
well,
hate when that happens.
But either way, that's a clue into how you should be playing that character.
Yes. Yeah.
So you look for little subtle hints like that. A lot of narrators, I don't personally do this, but a lot of narrators will break down the dialogue into color coding. Basically, they'll get different colored highlighter pens, and they'll, David's lines will be in yellow, and Peter's in green, and Susan's in blue. So they all know as they're moving. If they just have a quick glance at the page, they may not know what's going on, but they know who's going to be in the scene. It's a visual cue. So a lot of people do that. But I always try to prepare myself another way. I try to prepare my mood. Because especially when I'm working on genres that are maybe a little bit out of the ordinary. If I'm working on horror, I did a great book by Richard Matheson. It was called The Stir of Echoes. It was the Kevin Bacon movie from 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It's a great story. I read it when I was a kid. I think it came out in the 60s or 70s. I can't remember. Anyway, it's a story about a guy who flatly does not believe in ghosts, and yet all of a sudden, his 3-year-old son is speaking with the voice of an 80-year-old dead woman. And he suddenly has to face the idea that maybe everything he's believed for all these years isn't true and that ghosts do exist. And he is scared to death the entire book. So the night before it, I watched The Ring. The night before, I had done all the preparation. I'd read the book. I watched The Ring. I wanted to scare myself silly. And the night after the first day recording, before going into the studio the next day, I watched The Shining. I watched every movie I could find, the scariest movies I could find, because I thought if I sound scared, if I'm actually physically, emotionally scared, the audience will hear it.
Yep.
And they will never know when they listen to that book, it sounds like he watched The Ring last night. That they're never going to know. But in audiobooks, subtlety plays. And that's why I think that helps. When I did What Makes Sammy Run, it's a very kind of Howard Hawks, His Girl Friday, 1940s patter, the staccato burst dialogue. I listened to old radio shows every day on the way into the studio. I listened to Howard Duff doing Sam Spade. And because the entire book is literally done in that cadence, couldn't have been much older than 16 years old the first time I met him. Sammy Glick, sharp and quick, nice little fella. You know,
Right.
it's that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was going to essentially be doing a character voice for the entire book, and so I prepped myself by hearing that kind of character on the way to the studio every day and on the way home every day, just
That's
to
cool.
just to hammer it home.
Yeah.
So
Wow, that's really cool. Question: What is there like a typical length for a book? And if so, how does it break down time-wise? Like, how do you know how long it's going to take you to do a book?